as a sample of, like, I have this information for the participants, and I extracted only these two variables. This variable, it is the change in revenues in euros, and this is the change in employees from the business, of course, in humans, basically. And what I start, a good start here is to have the correlation. You can have the correlations by the correlation of these two variables by doing this formula, or you can do by the table. By the table, you will use the data analysis button, and you will select correlation, and then you would range on this. You would range all the values, and you will select the place of the table. Select OK. Of course, there's already labels in the first row, and then you have. So the result is the same, but the big advantage here is that you can have um, multiple columns, and it will create a big table with the correlations already for every interaction between variables. So then what I did was to create a linear regression based on a graphic. This is not very difficult. So what I did, I select all the data and inserted a graphic here. I just put it here to save time, but I used a scatter plot. So each dot, it is a business, and this is a map from, so on the employees change and the revenues change on the X. Now, getting a bit deeper, the X, this was not by chance. So the X axis, it is the one who is independent. In this case, it is revenues. So because we want to study how employment numbers change based on revenues. So the independent is revenues, and dependent on the revenues is the employee. Dependent is the y, because as you know, like in maths, in graphs, the x will determine the y with equations, and this is the equation. How did I do the equation? I just selected dots, I put add a trend line. Okay, the trend line is already there, and then I added here the display an equation on chart, so that it would be here, and the r square value I will explain a bit later. So this is the equation. So from it means that from the number of the increase in revenues, we can now predict the number of changing employees, because the number of employees change, it equals to a formula that has X revenues inside. So instead of to have this on cells, you can do the output of the linear regression, which is not only that advantage, but imagine if you had more variables here, this graph would be 4 dimensions, for example, and you cannot see it very well, of course, and there will be multiple variables here, and it will be difficult to pass these two formulas. So what you can have here is the coefficients. So the 5, this value, which is really low, it is going to multiply, it is this part, and then the fixed part, which is the interception, it is this coefficient. So then you can actually predict for the company T, for example, you have a decrease in 1,000 euros of revenues, and you will have an increase in 1.2 employees if that thing happen. But sometimes more important than predict, it is the relevance. So is the revenues relevant into the construction of the employees change? Because there are several variables that are important for the employee. We have the data for revenues, and we tried with revenues, but it's not. And we can see here on the R square that it is a really low value, which is here. It is the same. So this is this value more or less it is the percentage of the variable y that is um, how do you say it is changed by the x. So how does it justify it from 0 to 1? Very little. So it's not very significant. Other way to do it, it is you go on the p-value, which is the significance of the variable. You can make more research on that, but you want this value to be very low, lower than 0.05, so 5%, to consider significantly. In this case, you don't have a significant value. You could predict from the beginning because the correlation it is positive, but it is close to zero. Also from the graphic, you can see that there is no like trend here. It's very dispersed, the dots. So the conclusion that you can extract from here is that the correlation is low, and you cannot predict employment change by the revenues change, according to this data. And yeah, that's it. That's one way to go. You can do this multiple. You can do it with multiple variables. It would add here, and yeah, that's it in a simple way, and on how to do it.